Hi everyone, and welcome to Game Changers with Vicki Abelson. I'm Jason Reed, and this is Vicki. Hi Vicki.
Hi Jason, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm sorry we're like a minute or two late. I'm having hair issues.
When you have hair issues, you gotta deal
I'm
with them.
sorry.
Even if it takes an extra minute.
I'm having it, and I have this great Fab Faux pick. We're going to talk about this. But before we talk about that, how was your week, Jason? You had a stressful week, you said.
You know, there have been a lot of stressful things happening this week, and we talked a little bit
Not really.
about how sometimes things can all sort of glom together and all in one fell swoop, and you're really pressuring sometimes. So it's one of those.
Is it lifting?
I feel like it's going to lift soon. I'm optimistic about that, even if it hasn't quite yet. It's on the cusp of lifting.
The astrology is on your side because there was some kind of square Uranus with up my Saturn. I don't know, but it's better now. It's getting better. So
it certainly sounds uncomfortable, and I'm looking forward to getting better.
We're easing out of all of that shit right now. Is what we're doing. Oh, and all the food is on the table, so Will can't even eat while we're talking. Do we want to hand him his muffin or no? He does. Okay. So anyway, we're pretending that Will's not here yet because it's the magic. It's the magic of cinema and of an iPhone 10. So before we get to before we get to our guest, I want to say that I have had an extraordinary week of wonder.
Yeah.
I got to go to see our own Bernard Fowler sing at the Bowie celebration on Wednesday night, which was, who knew when I was driving to Riverside that I was going to the end of the earth to see Bernard Fowler. But it took an hour and 45 minutes in traffic, and my poor friend Cassandra had driven from the Pacific Palisades, so she was in the car for 4.5 hours to get. But the concert was so phenomenal, and Will and Bernard and Carmine Rojas, the bass player, sent love to Will, which I forgot to give him. When I saw him on Saturday night at the Wiltern when the Fab Faux played. And oh my God, I can't even go there. It was the first time I had seen them play. I've seen videos all the time, but it was the first time I'd seen them play out. And I've known, we're going to talk with Will about this, but I met Will many years ago on Bleecker Street, and I also met Jimmy Vivino at the same time, his co-founder of the Fab Faux. And it turned out, I knew a couple of guys in the band that Rich Pagano, we're Facebook friends for a million years, who knew? And anyway, it was an amazing show, as was the Bowie celebration. I can hear that, Will. he's rustling, and I can hear the rustling. And but anyway, it was phenomenal. And the surprise of the night for me of the Bowie celebration was that the other lead singer besides Bernard, Joe Sumner, and I'm saying Joe Sumner. I know a Gordon Sumner. Mr. Sting. Yes, his son. What a voice. Oh my God, amazing. The whole thing was amazing. Both shows I saw were stellar, spectacular. And
made the drive well worth it.
It made the drive well worth it. And the Wiltern was nice and close, so that one was easy. And there was a wonderful backstage hang afterwards at Will's gig at the Wiltern. It was very nice to see everybody, except I made a total fool of myself because I walked up to Jeff Young, the keyboard player, who's amazing, and who I spent Christmas Eve night with at Ricky Lee Jones's house, and he played and he was jammed. It was fantastic. And I said, "Hi, Steve," and I had it in my head that he was Steve Ferroni, and so that is something I will never live down. And I'm shaming myself publicly, Jeff, for you, publicly shaming myself that I did. He goes, "We don't all look alike." Oh God! But anyway. So he's now ignoring my email that I sent him today, but Jeff will be on, and Jimmy Vivino will be with us in November too. And that anyway, it's so thrilling. So I just want to give a shout out to our wonderful supporters, Rick Smokey of Quick Impressions in Chicago, who makes my stuff and my bookmarks and my tissue boxes and everything. And if you need anything printed. Rick does, which reminds me, Will, I have to have you do a PSA before you leave. he does so much good for so many people. He's so philanthropic. And so as much business as he gets, he gives away, I think, twice as much. He's extraordinary. So if you need anything printed, he just did Harry's new logo. Harry's changing the time of his podcast in the booth. Will no longer be on Thursdays. It's going to be on Sundays at 7:30. And they just redid Harry's logo. They're just fantastic. And I also want to give a shout out to my hairdresser. It's my fault the way it looks today and I love Nicole Venables of the Ruby Begonia Salon so much because her hairspray will make, for many reasons, but one of them is that her hairspray is called Fuck Off. She's a woman after my own heart. I just love her so much, and she's amazing. And I forgot to tell you, Nicole, that Judy Tenuta wants your number. I'm going to connect you guys because she liked the hair, right? Remember Judy Tenuta?
No, I have no idea who Judy Tenuta is. We only met last week, and it was fantastic. So you're telling me this is not a fuck off do you're sporting right now?
This is a please fuck me do. Oh no, I'm sorry. Woo! I can't believe I went there. Okay. No, and as a matter of fact, okay, so I wrote an article for a new site the last couple of days. I turned it in yesterday about the phenomenon of ghosting. You know from this ghosting phenomenon?
Yes, I'm familiar with ghosting.
And I might be being ghosted at this very minute. I don't know. No, I don't think so. Well, it turns out that this lovely guy, after I totally gave up all hope of online dating and this lovely guy has been talking to me, and he's in Italy. And I was like, well, how did we match? You're way more than 30 miles away. But it turns out, I guess he had been here. Anyway, he's on his way back today. He's Jewish, he's Orthodox, he's observant. He went away off the app for a couple of days because he was observing Sukkot. I mean, my father was a Hebrew teacher. We didn't know from observing Sukkot. I don't know, Sukkot, I don't know. Anyway, he's lovely, so he's on his way, jetting into LA today. I don't know.
On account of you?
No,
or are there other reasons?
No. But I normally would not even meet somebody that was just going to be in town for a while. But I don't know. Quite charming, the gentleman is. So I don't know. So we'll see. But maybe I'm being ghosted. Maybe it was all a ruse. Maybe it was all fake. Because I don't know. Because it's very weird out there. But anyway, aside from all of that, what I want to say is that I have come to really embrace in the last couple of weeks that we've been talking about this manifesting and in creating our own story and creating our own reality. And I have found that every time I've been hyper aware, right, Christina?
It works.
It works. But for the last 2 weeks, I have found that whenever I have caught myself going in a negative direction and starting to question something, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The shit falls apart. And as soon as I really believe it and hang on to it, it's mine. It cannot be taken away. So I'm just going to say that I believe that we create our story and our future. And so this stress, this is all coming back to you, Jason. So this stress you've been experiencing, I believe that if you get into the mindset, if we tell ourselves, yes, we are having stress and things are tough, well, the universe hears that, gives us more. But if we make the decision that as of right now, all the doors open, all is clear, all is well.
To your point, I hereby manifest that the stress will is dissipating
It's
as
gone.
we speak.
It's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone.
I feel like a weight has been lifted.
It's faux. It's faux. You know,
it's
I don't
fine, it's
understand the whole thing with the faux craze. It's faux. P-O, P-H-O is faux. I want to know how P-H-O is faux. This is faux to me. I don't know, but I'm wrong. My children correct me. These are noisy and obnoxious, so I'm going to take one off. And I'm going to leave on Pete George's guitar thing. Look at this. This isn't a crazy thing. He has his, you can plug your necklace in and hear his music. This is a brilliant thing that Pete George did, right? Isn't that cool?
Yes.
Yeah, very nice piece of jewelry. And this is this
and
beautiful
always
thing.
handy.
Always
handy, right?
Very handy.
Access it.
You could put your porn on there and just plug yourself. You could put anything
put
on
your
there.
porn on
You could
there.
do that.
Kind of what I was thinking.
So, all right. So anyway, in the 80s, in the mid 80s, I was a rock and roll promoter on Bleecker Street, and back in the day, you know, all these crazy guys that were playing these really big gigs with all these rock stars would come in and they would jam, and play on my stage with their original bands, right? So people that played with Cyndi Lauper and with Phoebe Snow and with Eric Clapton and with Blood, Sweat, and Tears and but then the actual people themselves would come in and on this little tiny stage, Badfinger, I booked Badfinger, and crazy stuff happened there. And all these amazing people would come in and jam. And, you know, back in those days, it was like 1986, you know, Will Lee was already on, he was part of the World's Most Dangerous Band for Late Night with David Letterman. And he came in a couple times and we would chat. He was always very lovely. And for some reason, I never invited him to play on that. I was intimidated. And I'm not easily intimidated, but I was. He never played at any of my stuff, which Jimmy Vivino did, a lot of Carmine did, a lot of people did, but I don't know why I never asked him, but he was always lovely. But then we came around full circle again, because then in the late 90s, my husband was the head monologue writer for David Letterman, and so I would see Will at the 4th of July party and at Christmas parties and stuff like that. Always very lovely. But it was actually when I started this show, well, what was originally The Road Taken, now Game Changers. Will's been like very, very lovely about sending me little notes, and when he like appreciates, he's coughing over there, poor Will, the Aller rest or whatever the hell isn't working. But anyway, so he was always really lovely about, he's always been very lovely and supportive about things. And so he's a New Yorker, but he was out here to do the Fab Faux, which, by the way, they're going to be at the Beacon Theater. Will give us the dates for that. I believe it's in early November. Yeah. And I got to see them do the entire White Album. And we have to talk about number 9. We have to talk about that like a lot. Oh my God. But anyway, you know, I don't want to go into all of Will's credits because I want to talk about them with him. But for anybody who's lived on the moon and doesn't know, Will and Paul Schaffer, you know, were the two people that started day one with David Letterman on Late Night and did the last day ever on Late Show with David Letterman and that whole tenure. And so having that kind of longevity in rock and roll, a steady gig like that, there aren't a lot of people in the world that can have that happening. That's pretty amazing.
No, that's impressive.
And all during that time, he got to play with the most amazing people, but he also won a Grammy Award, a Jazz Grammy Award. He's also been cited in the Music Hall of Fame and museum, I don't know what the hell it's called, but he'll tell us.
Musicians Hall of Fame.
Thank you, the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum, rather. Will was inducted into that. He's got another thing with N and A's and R's with initials that he's won 3 awards, and he'll have to give us that. He's played with like everybody, and I didn't know until today that he played with Barry Manilow and Bette Midler. This is something we have to talk about, but he's played with George Benson. He played with Ace Frehley. Ace did my jam. See, even Ace came and played my jams, and I didn't ask Will. But anyway, let's bring him out because I want to talk with him about all these things. What, Jason?
He did also bring a bass just in case
and
he felt so inclined, or if someone felt so inclined to ask, perhaps he might
did.
do something.
So we're gonna do that. So now, let's say hi to Will Lee.
Oh, sorry, I gotta put some of these awards down. We found a place for them all. There's a place for that one. And,
no,
yes.
and they're falling down. It's Will Lee.
The 7 or 8 that are leaning on each other, just prop them back up.
Well,
I have the feeling I don't have to say much of anything. You guys.
No, because now.
Hey, Will.
And now it's all you. So we have to sit very close together so we're all in the shot.
I heard you say something earlier
That's not
that's
true.
really inspiring, and I think that this has got to be a mashup of the fuck me and the love me do. The fuck off thing.
Yes.
You said fuck me do, and I think that's going to be like the greatest Paul McCartney mashup. They have to really get in on this. I hope they're watching it.
I'm sure Paul's people are watching. There's no doubt in my mind. So, all right. So since we started there, I have to say that I heard you say today that you want to be the Ringo of bass players, and I love that so much because Ringo is very underappreciated, I think, as a drummer, except by people in the know. Mm-hmm. So tell us what you meant by that.
Well, I've heard people say that Ringo's not a great drummer, blah blah blah, and there was a joke that John Lennon once made saying, when they said, "Is Ringo a good drummer?" He says, "He's not even the best drummer in the Beatles." So, which was a really great line. But the truth of the matter is, if you listen to those Beatles records, which here we go, this is all we're going to be talking
No,
about.
we're not. We're talking about Will.
More important to me than this conversation, but Ringo was the guy that you wanted to have playing drums on your song. You'd bring a song in, and he would have the perfect balance, and he still would, if as he creates music to this day.
Christina saw him at the Greek
Nights ago. Absolutely.
Fantastic show.
So what his amazing craft is, one of his amazing things about his playing is that he finds the right part that's somewhere between supporting the song and adding something to the song if the song needs a little something.
Like, can you give us an example? I know you can.
Well, look, if the only thing that he ever wrote or created was as a fill, that's like a wealth of fill just in those few notes.
It is.
But like his upside down beats that he used for songs like Anna, on early
I
Beatle
love
record.
Anna. That was the first record I had.
Anna and
Introducing the Beatles.
and All I've Got to Do, this crazy upside down drum beat. Of course, Ticket to Ride. Those kind of interesting, that had sort of an interesting hump to the feel of it all. And another great example is, of course, Tomorrow Never Knows. Turn off your mind, relax and float downstream. That is magic.
And did you start out as a drummer? Do I know
think
this?
of those things about.
Did you start out as a drummer?
I did.
And was it Ringo? Were you Ringo inspired?
It was the Beatles themselves, the whole entity, the whole experience of them. Do your craft, girls scream, game over. That's all I needed to know.
Okay, so that's what we want. So that's what I want to talk about. So
Yes.
okay, I remember where I was when I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Me too.
Right. Okay. So
Which was where?
I was in Howard Beach, Queens, and I can remember sitting on the floor in the living room. I can remember sitting on the floor in front of the television set, and life was never the same again.
Do you even remember who else was in the room?
I don't care.
Exactly.
No, my whole family was, I think, but I don't. All it was the Beatles and me.
I was the same.
That was it.
I think my parents were back behind me somewhere. Some other family members. I had 3 or 4 or 5, 12 brothers. I don't even know. But every pixel was mine. I wanted every pixel.
Okay, so now you're a kid watching
So I got this.
And so you have this experience. What's your takeaway from that experience?
My takeaway was, I'm now officially a musician for the rest of my life.
Had you been a musician the day before?
No.
Nothing.
I owned a set of drums that my dad had given me years before, but they just collected dust in a room.
Okay.
But after that, I was Mr. Drums. I was Mr. Music after that.
So, did you ever see that Love Actually when Liam Neeson's stepson locks himself in a room and teaches himself to play the drums because he has a crush on the girl and he has to learn how to play the drums? Am I the only one who's seen Love Actually? Really?
I've lived it, but I didn't see the scene.
All right. So, but your father was a musician.
He was.
And your mother.
Brilliant. Yeah, she was a great jazz singer.
So you grew up in a musical house.
Lots of jazz.
Lots of jazz. And did you appreciate jazz when you were a kid?
I did, because that's kind of what I didn't know how much or in what ways I appreciated it that later on in life, made it so valuable. But I learned about how to, what a groove is supposed to feel like. And that let me know for the rest of my life what gelling with other musicians was supposed to feel like. There was something in that ensemble playing of jazz that I heard so much of as a kid in our household, that I got an idea of what's grooving and what's not grooving, that applied to everything else in my musical life.
And so is that the music that you would choose to, as a kid? Were you listening to Chubby Checker and rock and roll and things, or was your house not filled with that?
The stuff that was on the radio compared to the Beatles was almost like black and white. But when the Beatles arrived, all of a sudden things went to color. It's like the sun came out, basically.
You know, and speaking of the sun coming out, I'm looking at our thing and we're too bright. So I'm thinking that we should note, Christine, I think we should just turn off that
It's just
middle
me,
one.
I'm amazingly
It's
Caucasian.
I think that's much better. Thank you.
12th
Isn't it
degree.
nice that we're too bright? It's good. You're amazing. You are the whitest person in the world. You are.
Well,
You are. But you're the whitest person with blackest soul.
hey!
You in a good way. Because you've got that groove. Okay, so the Beatles. So you hadn't played the drums. You weren't doing music. Were you a good student? What were you into when you were a kid?
I was one of these kids who used to be smart. I skipped first grade.
What? How do you skip first grade?
Well, in Texas it was easy because we were in this little tiny town called Huntsville. It was a country school.
Yeah.
And there were two main classrooms with an auditorium in between the two. The first classroom, where Miss Velma was the teacher of all 4 rows of desks.
Okay.
All 4 rows. Row 1 was first grade. Row 2 was second grade.
No kidding.
3rd and 4th. Miss Doggett in the other building had 5th through 8th.
Okay.
One teacher, 4 grades.
Wow.
So
And there's
for
only
me,
4 kids in a grade?
There's like 4, 5, 6, whatever the row, however long the row was.
Uh-huh.
But each row was A grade, and they were
Okay.
being taught like at their level by one teacher.
Wow.
So she would go, okay, now
That's like
first
lesson
graders, blah blah
learned.
blah. So for me, I could read since I got out of kindergarten. I could already read for some reason. I got
Okay.
a few awards for it as a kid and that
Wow.
kind of thing. But I was
Smarty
told
pants.
to go over to this row,
Yeah.
which didn't seem like a big deal moving over 1.5 feet. But I was skipping first grade.
That's
Isn't
amazing.
that crazy?
You literally moved over a row.
Yeah,
and
could
you
you
were in a
just
whole new...
just scoot over and now you're in college. You know? It's like, wow, that easy. My life is good.
Oh my God. All right, so you're smarty pants in school. And
I moved this way because I remember that the rows were this was first, looking at the teacher. This was
Right.
second, and the big older 4th graders were,
Grad
4.5
school,
feet
right
over that way.
So now, are you a littler kid than all the other kids in your row, or were you always tall?
In my mind, because of my self-esteem, I'm always short and small.
Okay, now this is interesting.
Very interesting.
This is
I don't see myself as a kind of large person at all.
okay.
It's
This
very
is
strange.
really interesting. We were talking briefly before we went on the air that Will and I are both in recovery. Well,
I certainly am.
I
don't
certainly
know about you.
I
I'm
am.
not going to bust your anonymity the way
I-
you just did mine, but go ahead.
Oh no! I asked you if we could
No,
talk about
I'm
it.
very public about this. I'm
Yes,
kidding.
and I've heard you speak about it
I love
on other shows, and I speak about it all the time. I don't speak about the name of the program because I honor the traditions, but I do speak about the fact that
Is
I
there
go
an
to
A
them.
in it?
There is an A. There's an A, and I go to many, and there's an A in all of them, actually.
That's,
Yeah.
whatever you need. It's an incredible program.
It is incredible, and it's changed my life completely. So we're not there yet, but we're here, so let's go. So when did you start using, and when did you stop, and why? What?
Using
I mean, what was your drug of choice? Mine was pot, but
cocaine and alcohol.
okay. And were you doing that stuff when you were a kid in Texas?
Not quite. We moved out when I was around 11.
Oh, okay.
We moved to Miami, and about maybe 2 or 3 years later, I discovered all those great things like drinking and stealing from the booze cabinet and
Oh yeah.
smoking cigarettes.
Oh
And,
yeah. I was doing
and
that
then,
too.
of course, pot, Miami.
So
Funny.
now, did your parents know what was going on with you?
They were having their own little
Oh.
party.
Okay.
They weren't really, they were easy to sneak around on, if you will.
Yeah, my mother was easy to sneak around on too. So they were having their own party. You were doing this. Now, was it affecting? Were you still good in school? You who skipped first grade?
It was becoming less and less of a priority for me, being good in school. Being good musically was always important.
Okay, so
I hated the people in school, so the faster I could get out of there. I mean, I had very few friends. I'm not the guy that's going to show up at a reunion, for example.
I've never gone to any of my high school reunions. Yeah.
You get those notices all the time. Hey,
No,
you
my
gotta-
school had 5,000 kids, and so no, I never have gotten one ever. But you get the notice and you don't go.
You're right. I just trash it right away. Because I mean,
But you're
what's
very
in it?
social now, and everybody loves you. I got Louis for you from Bernard, from Karma. Everybody was saying hello to you, and everybody.
Well, these are my people you're talking about here.
And you know, I was thinking
Bernard was at my birthday.
He told me he was here like a few days later. In
Bernard
this living
Fowler,
room.
one of the great talents
He's
in our business. He's so good.
Unbelievable. And he said he had just been to your party. And I was thinking that today too. Is the music business is a very small world. You know, I was looking on the thread of people that were liking the fact that you were going to be on the show, and I was looking at just Tommy Allen from the old China Club,
Gave Fab Faux our first gig. Tommy Allen did.
Did he really?
He sure did.
At the China Club?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
I know. He was the guy sort of booking talent for the room and stuff.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I was standing next to him one night at
Hi, Tommy.
Tommy Allen, we love you so much. He's the best. He's my neighbor too.
Is he really?
We live about a block and a half from each other in the city.
I have not seen Tommy since the China Club days, but I did a Wednesday night jam thing there for a while at the end of...
He's as wonderful as ever. Just a great guy, great talent, plays great drums. He played on my album.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
He's on the, there's a track on the new album, the newest album. I shouldn't say it's new anymore because it's 3 or 4 years old. But it's called Misunderstanding.
I love that song.
You know it?
I do know it. I was listening to you in rotation.
Tommy Allen.
Wow. And misunderstanding is not a misunderstanding, it's misunderstanding, which is so cool. Which
Woo,
I love.
clever.
But that's, I was telling you, fooled
him, you like.
Fooled him. I must have listened to that 30 times today. I am mad, I have mad love for it. It's fantastic, it's a fantastic video, a wonderful video. We're all over the place, and I want to go back, but we started to talk about what I found so interesting that you said was about low self-esteem, and then we talked about the fact of drugs and alcohol, and did that play into it for you?
I'm sure it did, yeah. I mean, you know, I felt really secure when I had some cocaine in my pocket. I felt like, okay, I'm good to go, I'm secure, let's move ahead. And it was such a weird illusion too, because it's really just, I mean, the mind is a terrible waste. I'm doing a PSA.
Yeah, but I think it's the mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Oh yeah, well in my case.
So, but
yeah, you know, I would actually just, you know, it's funny about security. It's such an illusion.
But you've accomplished so much. Like, you were already accomplishing a lot when you got sober, because you're 33 years sober. Mm-hmm. So 33 years. You already had like this very serious gig on television with Letterman.
That was a functioning.
You were doing all of these other side projects and on so many people's albums and so functioning. I was so why did you stop? Why did you choose to stop?
It got to be such a burden just to keep it all going. Mm-hmm. You'd have to call a dealer, you'd have to be at a bar, you'd have to go cop some things, some drinks, you'd have to like, sometimes, God forbid, leave the house in your paranoid state to go cop. You know, when the guy wouldn't come over, he'd be like, what do you mean you can't come over? You know, like, you're coming over, right?
They make it a little too easy now.
It just got to be just a chore every day.
Did you work high? Were you?
I not for a long time,
mm-hmm.
but the last few years, mm-hmm. you know, it kept creeping into the schedule more and more.
Right.
You know, and then there was no gap after a while. It was just
right.
hot all the time.
Did you ever get busted for it? I mean, I don't mean busted, arrested. I mean, did you ever get called out for it?
No, but I actually had at the very end of my run, mm-hmm. as we call it in the program, I actually was in this amazing position I've been hired to sing solo on 3 national television campaigns, which is an enviable position.
I didn't mention, by the way, and I just want to say that you probably got more work in that world of doing as a singer
yeah.
on commercials and all of that than probably anybody. You were probably the most.
No,
you were one of the most working people in the jingle world.
Yes, well that includes playing too. So you know.
Okay.
Anyway, the singing thing was like When you're a vocalist, you cannot hide behind your instrument. You're dealing with the client. You're in front of everybody after all the musicians go home.
Oh, so you're not just sitting there.
Right.
Yeah.
You can play sick. You can play. You can hide behind your instrument. Not even look at anybody and just go.
Right.
But if you're singing, it's all about you, and that kind of pressure when you're paranoid and high, you can't really sustain that.
Okay, so I interrupted. So you had 3 gigs.
3 huge national TV campaigns to
Which,
sing.
by the way, pay.
And singing is, paid a lot more than playing. A lot more.
Yeah.
So I'd been up all night. The phone is ringing. I'm looking at it ringing, and I'm thinking, I'm not here. I don't exist. Period. So
Wow.
why would I answer that phone? It was the phone call. The "Where are you?" phone call.
So you didn't even show up.
I just no. And at that point, I actually asked myself a question with which I kind of blew my own mind. I said, "Are you happy?" And I couldn't come up with a lie. I couldn't come up with a yes.
Oh.
And at that point, I knew it was time.
Yeah.
So I was lucky to get into rehab like really soon after that. They had a slot that was open, and I said, "I'll be right there."
And you took a hiatus from.
It took 5 weeks.
And when you came out in 5 weeks, did you feel like?
I felt like a raw wound. It was bizarre. I was out in the world like without my security blanket, but I had already done a bit of therapy in rehab, like enough to sort of have some tools, to know you go to a meeting, you don't do this, you don't associate with that person, you know.
And so were meetings weird for you because you were Willie and you were on TV, and was that weird in any way?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, I really felt safe and anonymous in those rooms. Even if I wasn't actually anonymous, I felt like that's okay too.
Yeah.
I need to be here, so.
Do you still go to meetings?
Rarely. Rarely. But it's funny, man, when you're talking about like people that are known going to meetings. I mean, LA is the home of like huge stars go to the meetings,
Well, they also have those
elite meetings.
They do.
Yeah.
So there are those, but then there are also those who move among us and who just show up. And I go to the writers' meetings, and there are incredible people that show up to speak.
Well, it's just the most amazing program.
It is.
Thank God.
So was there any pushback at work at Late Show when you were getting sober? Was it accepted? Was it fine? Was it weird?
Everybody was cool. I mean, I never missed a show because of being wasted or high or anything. So that was one of the things I could actually do and get away with. But singing in front of a bunch of corporate people is not one of the things I could do.
By the way, one of the videos I watched today was you singing McArthur Park. Oh my! On the cake. Oh,
what a gig, right?
Oh my God! He on Late Show with oh God, I'm totally spacing now. Jimmy Webb, who wrote the song.
I got him on the gig.
Did you really?
I called him up. I said, "Look, I got to tell you what's happening. Are you going to be around in July or June or whenever that thing aired?" He said, "Yeah, I'll just be off the road." And I said, "Listen, I've been asked to sing McArthur Park with like Letterman wants me to do it, and they're going to embellish the band with strings and horns and all this stuff."
It was unbelievable.
I said, "Would you, if I could talk him into it, would you want to play?" And he said, "Yeah." So I called up Paul and I said, "Hey, I got this great idea. What about just getting Jimmy to play with us on the thing?" And in fact, he's on the original Richard Harris record. Starts out with ding, 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 right?
Yeah.
First thing you hear is Jimmy Webb playing that part on a harpsichord.
Oh.
And he has not played that since the session. So when he got to the show,
wow.
that was
what
his
year
role.
was it? What year was
it?
it on the show? Was he on the show? What
I
year
guess
was
it was
that?
like 80. Let me think about this. It had to be like in. It had to be in 14, I think.
Okay. So not that
the show
long ago.
in 15. And it was so cute. He actually made me relax because he was so nervous. He was like a little kid. And it was like, oh, I hope I get it right. It was just great.
It was, and
look
I
over
just
and
want to
see my
say
boy.
the note that
We're friends.
he's lovely. I saw him at Carnegie Hall, and I saw him recently
Did you?
here. Yeah, I saw him at Carnegie Hall years ago. But then I saw him recently. What's the place where they have the outdoor concerts here in the summertime? I can't think of what it's called. It's an outdoor band shell. Anyway, I saw him there just maybe 2
It
years
wouldn't be
ago.
Hollywood Bowl.
No. Oh, that little band shell.
Yeah, that little.
No, this one's in
Dive
Pasadena.
over there.
It's in Pasadena. I can't
The
think of what.
Rose?
Not the Rose. It's an outdoor thing. I can't think of what it's called.
Anyway, he's just the best.
That note that you hit at the end of that song.
That was one of these deals.
Oh my God! What note was that?
I think B flat, and I think that note is the note that caused Paul Schaffer to go to David and say, "Hey, I think Will could pull this off if you want to try it," because we had done it at a rehearsal.
Wow.
And we were going to use it as that song as a bumper, just because
Right.
David put in a mild request. Can you learn this song by Elvis Costello and maybe throw in a little MacArthur Park, and we get to rehearsal when everybody wasn't quite prepared, but I was super prepared. And so Paul was really impressed with that, I think, and he went back to David and reported that I think we could pull this off as a feature.
It was
and Dave went for
phenomenal. It was phenomenal. So
Scary.
that's
playing bass too,
unbelievable.
so it's like,
Yes, it is such a big note that you hit it, like the whole progression there at the end to that high, to that B flat, which is crazy. And so we're skipping the childhood. We're going to go back, but because we're here, so the moments that were the craziest for you, you've played with everybody on that show.
in the early days, they would have the band back up everybody. All the musical acts.
Everybody. So, were there
Sonny and
highlights
Cher.
for you? Oh my God.
That was a good one.
What song did you do? Do you
We
remember?
did.
I got you, babe. Yeah. When they were
And
still Sonny and Cher.
I just had a flashback of Groundhog Day, the movie. Anyway, how every morning the alarm went off.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
Their
so
last anything, and first in many years they hadn't seen each other. Sonny and Cher.
that's right. I remember that.
But that was pretty special. That was pretty cool.
What else was anything else you can point to that was like mind blowing?
Well, the thing that I always say in these situations, in anytime I'm ever asked, and it's without any doubt, is when James Brown first came on the show. The first year of the show, James Brown was a musical guest, and we had rehearsed 2 tunes with him, and the band was so kick-ass, and he was so impressed that in the middle of toward the end of the show, in the middle of the segment where Dave is talking for the last time, we think it's going to be the last time, but James, and he's about to let James go, and he says, "Is there anything else you'd like to do before we close?" And James Brown goes, before we close, do we close with I got the feeling." And we had not rehearsed this song, "I Got the Feeling," but he
was just feeling
he
it.
heard us play it as a bumper in the commercials. And he was so impressed that he wanted to be part of it.
Wow.
So he, unprecedented. There's never been any musical act that did 3 songs on the Letterman show ever.
Is that true?
I mean, already 2 was
Right.
was already beyond the limit, and Dave couldn't resist saying yes, so we went for it. It was just the
Wow.
audience was on their feet, and we had a lot of friends in the house too. And I look back at the footage from back then, and I see it. I can't believe how many of my friends are in the house that night.
Wow.
Everybody wanted to be there.
Because
so
James
people
Brown was
begged
on.
for tickets. Yeah.
Right. So who else were guests on the Late Show that your friends that you were getting called? I mean, the Darlene Love thing. I was there for 4 of those. I mean, those were just ridiculous.
It's
Baby,
because
please
of her.
come home. Oh my God.
She is so strong. The first year we did it, it was only the 4-piece band and her. And you remember how many people they would add? They would add whole choirs and French horns and harps and lots of strings. And
my friend Bruce Kapler would come out of the thing and with
right,
their saxophone.
With the Santa suit on.
Yeah.
So great. But
4 pieces.
when I look back at the very first one that we did, it was years before Letterman had asked for there to be a dress code for the band. So everybody's like in sweatshirts. I think even Darlene was in a sweatshirt. And it was really just so down.
Wow.
But there were only 4 musicians and her, and it was still,
Kick-ass.
to me, as powerful as with all the bells and whistles.
Wow.
It was still because it was her.
Yeah.
And she's that strong.
Wow.
She's that great. She's
Amazing.
the real deal.
Amazing. That was such a monument. It's like such an important thing that Dave did every year. And Jay Thomas throwing the football every year and trying to hit the pizza off the tree.
Meatball, yeah.
The meatball, right. Oh my God.
God rest
Yeah.
his soul. He was
Yes.
really funny.
And always great with Dave. Always great.
Yeah.
What did you have favorite guests? I mean, aside from playing with them, did you have favorite moments? Because I cannot believe your history
my
on
God.
that show, what you lived through.
So many. Zevon.
Oh,
How about
God.
Warren Zevon?
And-
Every time
and
he
Dave
was on
loved
was
him.
a riot. He was the greatest.
Yeah.
I'm attempting to write a song about him
Are
these
you?
days. Yeah. I'm going to call it Gray Guitar. Because he always had this gray guitar with him. I don't know. It was like a primer gray.
That's unusual.
It is.
It is unusual. All
And
right,
it was
so
him.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to Willie. So you're in Florida. You're okay. So you start playing the drums. Now, to me, one of the greatest bass lines of all time, Taxman. I mean, Paul's Taxman. I mean,
Unbelievable,
that
yeah.
bass line. That you and Smoke on the Water are the reasons that I wanted to learn how to play bass. So you're starting on the drums. Why do you? And are you in bands as a drummer?
Yes. Couldn't wait to start a band. Got
So
a band,
how old
got
were
a
you when you
band.
have a band?
I don't know. I think it was probably at 12 maybe or something.
Oh,
And
so
then
did you have girls screaming?
They didn't even look in the direction of the band. They were like, "Can you keep it down?" But we were doing like, I mean, obviously, we're just trying to figure it out. So I had the drums, thanks to my dad, from years before the Beatles ever hit the Ed Sullivan show.
Right.
I had the kit, and we had.
Did you take lessons?
Oh, we were really young, No lessons, but
You
we
just
were
taught
so,
yourself.
Yeah.
Good.
We were so young that even though the Beatles were out there and plenty of bands had been established, kids my age didn't really understand about the bass. Everybody played either guitar or drums. Guitars, drums.
My brother's band
guitars.
did not have a bass
There were
player.
guitar players left and right. There were drummers all over the place.
You're absolutely right.
So our band consisted of my little kit, me and the drums, 2 guitar guys.
Right.
No PA, because that was way extravagant. What's a PA? So what did we play? We couldn't obviously do any vocal stuff, so we were like a surf instrumental band, playing like the Ventures and stuff.
I was just going to say the Ventures. Yes.
Chantays,
Right.
those cool walk don't run kind of surf instrumentals with a lot of reverb on the amp and stuff. And it wasn't until I kind of got over that I thought, it'd be nice to have our band have a more professional sound. So the idea was not only to get a PA, but to fill it out with a bass player. But there were no bass players our age.
Wow.
So I said, look, I'll switch to bass. Let's get a guy. Let's just get a drummer.
Were drummers, there were a lot of kids learning to play the drums in those days?
There were kids banging drums. Because that's like, for a young male, bashing stuff is so natural. It's just a natural thing to want to do, right?
Yeah.
So, and I still to this day love playing drums.
Do you?
I don't play enough. I don't have a place to set up a kit because I live in New York City and the apartment wouldn't be allowed for 5 seconds. I'd be out of there, kicked out. But the bass thing, I had been the lead singer in the band, and the big wake-up call was, okay, now we got a drummer, and his dad owned a music store, and they got us our first gig in the parking lot of Sunnyland Music was the name of the store. Parking lot of Sunnyland Music in the strip mall down in South Miami. And at that point, rehearsing for that gig is when I realized, wow, playing bass and singing is really, can I go back to drums? But we had already hired the guy,
So
and his dad
wait a
got us
minute,
the gig.
drumming and singing is easier than
So much easier. Because basically the drum pattern, if you're the kind of drummer that supports a groove,
Right.
you're just grooving. You're just
Okay.
playing this thing, and it's kind of pretty much repetitive.
Okay.
But bass playing gets involved with like notes and stuff. You've heard of these things, right?
I've heard of notes.
Yes. Very technical talk. I don't want to get in anybody's head.
Be careful with that here. I'm blonde. Not really.
Not you.
So being a bass.
So that was like, wow, I'm just kind of stuck here. I got to work on this. And it's funny because so now I do a lot of playing bass and singing.
Yes, you do.
But every time you do,
Excuse me.
every time I have to learn a new song, it's like starting from the beginning again. You have to learn the bass part.
Really?
It's going to be underneath the singing, but then you got to have it so down that you're not thinking about that to the point where you can't deliver the message of the song. Wow. You know, 'cause this is really what's important.
I have never
this is the
thought about
communicator,
this.
right?
Right, of course. So you have to learn the song on bass first.
That's
before
kind
you
of how
before you
so
approach
you can,
the.
so that can become second nature. So you can forget about that while you're actually delivering the message of the song.
That's fascinating. Okay, so you switch.
You haven't said much. No.
You got a question for him?
I'm interested in hearing more about these notes you talk about here.
Notes, no, too technical. I can't get.
Well, you
into
did
it.
skip first grade after all.
That's
So.
true.
Okay, so Mike Nathan Senior is bass hero. Warren Zevon, what? I'm looking at what people are saying.
Tons of people writing in to say hello.
Tons of hello, people. Hello. Thanks
Somebody
for
said
saying
they
hi.
can't hear. I don't know why you can't hear because. Can you guys hear? Let us know because I don't know. We've never had that problem.
Let us know. Let us know. Let us know.
So, Chaka.
Chaka.
What did you?
What about Chaka?
Did you play with
Yes.
her?
I did,
What was that like?
It was, well, you know,
Balls to
Chaka
the
Khan
walls.
is Aretha is Aretha. That's an entity unto her own self. That's
And you got to play
stuff,
with
but
Aretha
Chaka,
too.
Just a little bit of recording and a couple of moments here and there, but Chaka is the singer that everybody imitated. She's the soul singer that all the chick singers wanted to. And I think it was because she was not only great, but stylistically accessible. You could sort of go there easier than you could go to Aretha's thing, because Aretha was just this
Unto herself.
anomaly.
Yes.
You know? But Chaka was really incredible in the studio. We had some great times. We made On Every Woman. We did.
You were on that song?
Mhm. Some other cool songs on that same album, which was just called Chaka. That was her first solo album. And then after that, the same producer, Reef Martin, would hire me to do some other really cool tracks for her. We did a thing called, I think it was called Bebop Medley or something, where she incorporated a bunch of really old bebop standards and put them into this really groove-oriented medley of jazz, otherwise jazz songs, and she sang the hell out of them, of course, because that's all she knows how to do. And, you know, it was just a thrill because I was just as, big of a fan of hers as anybody.
All right, so we're going back before we go forward. So you're playing bass. You have this band. You're playing in a parking lot. You're how old?
Let's say 13 at that point.
So
maybe.
now at this point, do you know when I grow up, this is what I want to do? Is this all I want to do?
I wasn't ever. Once I got into this set behind the drums, 5 minutes after the Beatles went off the air, the first night, February 9th, 1964.
Not that you remember or anything.
No, at approximately
12:02 p.m.
I guess
Yeah.
8:07. I was a professional musician from that moment forward, and it was one of those things where I really feel lucky knowing this, that I never really ever had to make a choice about what I'm going to do next.
Okay.
There was no fork in the road.
Let's talk. So there was no plan B ever.
Never.
I love that. Okay, because this is, this show, Game Changers, and you are most certainly a game changer. But it started out, the road taken, to help people figure out how you did, for us to understand how you did what you did. And I have found, almost without exception, that people who are successful don't have a plan B. That if you have a plan B, you're going to fall on plan B if times get tough. But you didn't really have so much tough, I don't think, because it seemed okay. So you're a kid playing in a parking lot. What happens after that? When do you get paid to be a musician for the first time?
I was already getting paid by that point.
In the parking lot? Come on, you're 13 and you're getting.
It sounds
paid
pretty
in the,
seedy getting paid in the parking lot.
You're getting paid at 13 in the parking lot, really?
Well, actually, I can't say that we actually got paid for that gig, but gigs before that, I was already getting like $6 a man for some of these like Catholic youth organization gigs where we were the instrumental band playing surf instrumentals and stuff like that.
Right.
So that felt pretty good.
Now, were you getting paid because you Did you go into it and say, okay, I'm going to make my living I'm going to make money doing this? Like, were you also like sort of a business hustler a little bit?
I didn't. Well, I already had the drum kit, so I didn't,
Right.
and I still live with my parents, so I didn't need any money yet.
But did you want to be valued that way? Because it sounds to me like you, or that wasn't your idea, it just kind of happened.
I'm not that mature,
Okay.
even still. But I did know that once I was a bassist, I had my eye on this bass in the window of Coral Gables music.
Okay. What was it?
Gorgeous white Fender Precision 64. And Christmas was coming, and I said to Dad, I know what I'd like for Christmas, and blah, blah, blah. And Christmas morning, there was a brown, no brand name, really ugly bass, leaning against a really goofy amplifier, and I said, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? And at first I was really disappointed. I was like, oh man, he knew what I wanted, but he didn't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand what's happening here. I mean,
How old were you?
at that point, maybe 13. So I showed him. I went to work and got that bass.
How long did it take
I
you?
gigged my ass off. 2 or 3 months.
That's very
You know what I'm
fast.
saying? And I think Dad knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't just going to hand me a freebie and say, you didn't have to earn anything. You're already amazing. He wasn't that kind of guy.
So
He
your
was
dad
smarter
was
than
not
me.
only a musician, your dad also was an educator? Was he an educator?
Yeah, he was the dean of University of Miami School of Music.
Oh, wow.
In fact, he saved it from going away.
Wow.
Because he had been in Texas where we grew up until I was 11. He was the head of this music department in Huntsville, Texas, and he had put together a really great music school with a great faculty. So the word was out that here's a guy who knows what he's doing. The president of the University of Miami called him up and said, would you come and be the head of the fine arts department at the University of Miami? And my dad says, yes, but I understand your plan is to take the music school and kind of glom it into the fine arts department. And I will come and do this for the school if you promise me that you'll keep the music school separate. And from there, he built it up to this amazing destination that it is today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was a heavy guy.
That's phenomenal. And did your mother did she stay musical? Not so much?
She kind of fell off the musical wagon.
Okay. But but your parents lived to see you have success?
Yes, my dad certainly did. My mom was already, I guess I was doing well when my mom passed away. I was doing really well.
So okay, so you're gigging and you're 13. You're still going to school? Are you still doing okay in school? You're not skipping grades anymore.
School is becoming less and less of a thing.
Less and less.
Yeah.
Less and less.
I was less.
But you finished.
I was less headed for valedictorian
Okay.
as every day went by.
But you finished school.
I finished high school.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. All right. So you finished high school. So now you're gigging all the way through school?
Yes, lots of gigs.
Lots of girls.
Plenty of girls.
Plenty of girls.
Lots of fun.
Lots of fun.
And
Lots of drinking. Lots of.
that was starting to take place, and I was surrounded by people doing the same thing, of course. So it was easy to just party and go nuts.
And so how did life change for you from Florida? How's this boy coming up north and playing some serious music? Because I didn't know until today that you played with Bette Midler and Barry Manilow, like that whole thing. Was that one of your first?
That was her first
It was her
national
first.
tour.
And so how did you get on? All right, where did you start? Where's your first big gig?
My first amazing break came when, so I'm going to college. I'm at the University of Miami. I'm in my second year, and I almost flunked out the first year, and then I decided to make electric bass my major, which was really
What was it before?
lucky. Well, it started with, God, what was it in the very beginning? It was some absurd thing. French horn. It was French horn.
Why?
Well, because I'd come out of, I was a trumpet player and turned French horn player.
Wait, when were you a trumpet player? We haven't even heard about the
when
trumpet.
you skipped to college, I didn't get.
When was there a trumpet?
Well, for years.
Really?
For like junior high school and high school. And at the end of high school, the band director of the marching band and the concert band, same thing, had me switch over to French horn. And I was like, oh, sure, okay. So next thing I knew, I was a French horn player, and I get into University of Miami, and I was going to be a French horn major, and I really sucked, really bad. Did the world a favor, got off the French horn, became a bass major. And at the time, there were no electric bass majors, so I think I was the first one.
Wow.
And I didn't know you could do that, but the assistant dean saw that I was failing and said, look, I mean, they're blowing this whole thing. You know, you're going to get kicked out of school.
Wow.
Why don't you
Do what you do.
Major, I've seen you, I've heard you play. You got amazing potential. Learn how to read bass clef and blah, blah, blah. So I was in, but by the time I left Miami, I was in like 8 bands. I was playing all the time. 6 sets a night, 6 nights a week.
Oh my God.
That was always happening, and then everything in between. And I got this, and so I was idolizing this particular band that was in New York called Dreams.
Okay.
Randy Brecker, Michael Brecker, Billy Cobham.
Oh wow.
Just like, you know, this was in the era of the jazz rock fusion band. Chicago, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Dreams.
So this is the 7?
This is 1970, yeah. I get this strange phone call from Randy Brecker. I'm like, God, where do I know that name from? All right, let me see the number. It's a 212. So,
You're
okay.
still in Florida?
Yeah, I'm in big band class. Somebody slaps the note on my amp to call Randy Brecker, and it was so out of context I didn't put it together. So anyway, I called the number, and Randy's girlfriend answered the phone, and she said she knew to expect the call, and I said, "What's going on?" She said that Randy and the band want you to come up and audition for Dreams.
How did they know about you?
Well, that was the most amazing. That's the key. But some guy came down to guest lecture at the University of Miami one day, and we jammed. He went back to New York and knew the Breckers, and knew that they were looking for a bass player, and they'd exhausted everybody in New York trying to replace their at the time current bass player, and it was just so random.
Wow,
So
that's crazy. While you're in college jamming in a class?
And they couldn't have possibly known how much I idolized the band. It was to the point where they said, look, we'll fly you up. If you make the audition, we'll pay you. No, you fly yourself.
Oh, okay.
If you make the audition, we'll pay you back. And I get to the audition, and it was really intimidating because they were like all these road cases, Miles Davis, Santana, Johnny Winter, and I'm walking down this hall and going,
God.
yeah, we're not gonna do this information. I don't want to see that. I just want to play some music.
Oh my God.
Sit down, they put a bunch of music in front of me, and I see the song titles, and I said, guys, I read, but I don't think I need to see this. Just count it off, let's see what happens. And they were really moved and impressed that they didn't have to do any work and to teach me anything.
Wow.
Because I was already such a huge fan.
Okay, so I want to talk about that for a second, your work ethic. So you're already telling us that you were doing like 6 gigs a night, 6 days a week, practicing. I imagine that you took that very seriously.
No, but I took playing seriously.
Okay, so you were learning on the gig.
Yes,
Okay.
very much so. That's always been my kind of thing, my MO. I don't do.
Okay, so but wait a minute. Now you're going up and you're playing this stuff. Had you played that music before, or you just knew you could?
2 things. I sort of played along, but the drummer in Dreams was so strong. Billy Cobham was so strong.
Amazing.
That was really the first time that I could, you know, actually relate to feeling that I didn't have to be the timekeeper. And I'd gotten used to being the timekeeper, feeling like, okay, in order to keep this tempo where it should be, I've got to work really hard. But with Billy,
Wow.
I just fell asleep and music just came out, you know.
Wow.
It was really like floating backwards. I didn't have to do any work at all.
Okay, so you're there for your audition.
That was
You go in there, and there he is. You're playing with him, and boom, and you get the gig.
Yeah.
And they pay your
They
airfare.
liked that I sang because Clive Davis, the record company president, was giving him pressure to be more commercial or whatever.
Clive Davis, you've heard. We've heard of the guy. So you get this huge gig.
To me, it was the hugest. I didn't realize that in the real world of rock and roll, these guys were like nothing.
So
we would open for Springsteen, and all we would hear was Bruce.
Oh, thankless opening up. So what was that gift? So you went on the road with these guys.
Yeah, and I loved it because I loved them, and I loved the music, and we got into some interesting. We were part of some interesting bills. We went on one tour was like Uriah Heep. We were opening for like Uriah Heep and Cactus.
Wow, I saw both of them back in the day. I might have seen you open for them now that I think about it. It could be. Yeah, that's an interesting combination. So now you're playing on what size stages are you like? What are the venues like on that tour?
They were either like college sort of auditorium things, or very often, this is like just post Woodstock, there were a lot of festival scenarios.
Right.
Which is like people forever.
So you walk out on a stage, and as far as the eye can see,
sometimes, except for those college things, it was either like a gym or a thing, like
and
a regular auditorium.
What was that like the first time you walked out on a festival stage? And
it was breathtaking. It was, it's funny with festivals, like with huge amounts of people, it's way less intimidating than a club. Because, at the club, there's like 12 people in there, and they're all looking at you, and they're right next to you. At like Live Aid or something, for example, that was maybe the biggest thing that I ever looked out and saw with the Thompson twins. There was no room for fear. There was no like element that would create fear. Because
it's too
you can't feel anybody, you can't see anybody. It's just about the people on stage at that point, because it's just too big.
What's your favorite venue to play? Like, I love the Beacon Theater. I know you guys are playing at the Beacon, but like, what's as a musician, what is the most thrilling kind of
thrilling?
Yeah. What like,
I have more of a love for rooms that sound good, and in my experience, you were talking about the Bette Midler national tour, that first one. We played like all these venues in all these towns, but when we got to Philadelphia, it was it was called oh my God, it's been too many years. I want to say Great American, but that's San Francisco.
Okay.
But there was a great venue in Philly, and as far as New York goes, as far as like the satisfaction.
You were too young to play the Fillmore.
I just missed the Fillmore.
I went there as a person.
Just missed it.
Did you ever go?
No, I missed the whole thing. It ended right before I got to New York.
Oh.
But everybody was talking about it still.
Oh, it was an unbelievable.
Yeah, the Fillmore,
place.
the Electric Circus, the scene. I missed all those. Those all stopped happening before I got to town.
Bette Sussman is saying hi. Bette!
Hi, Bette! What's happening with this geezer?
I'm looking to see who else. I know there are friends of yours on here, and like, all right, well, shit. Well,
in New York, the Bowery Ballroom?
Yeah, of course.
Man, that is a really, I wish the Fab Faux hadn't outgrown that place. That was our first really cool home. But that is one of the greatest sounding rooms.
Is it?
Even from the stage, but also from the house. From anywhere in the house. It's just one of those places that either they accidentally got right, or it just happened to be a good music place on purpose. I'm not sure how it got to be so satisfying to play there.
Nice.
But when I think of, to answer your question, it's more like a sonic satisfaction factor.
Yeah. That makes good sense.
Yeah.
And then are there certain venues that you feel more connected, because you sing, to the audience because you can actually see them?
Well, the smaller, the more that's the case. Yeah.
Like at the Wiltern, could you see people?
Saw.
You could see. Okay.
Saw people. I didn't, from where I was, I couldn't see anybody I knew, which is
right. We were all way back. We were further back.
Which might be good.
Yeah.
That might take that part of the thing out of the equation. Like I don't have to entertain that friend of mine just because
Peter, your guy from, I don't know. I was sitting next to Peter.
Peter Erskine?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So.
Such a sweet guy. What a great talent.
So. No, wrong Peter.
Oh.
This Peter, it was a guitar, he supplied you with things, but not drugs, I think. I don't think he was a player. I thought he was
I missed him. Did I miss him?
no, he came backstage.
Okay.
He was in the green room. Very, very tall, salt and pepper hair.
It almost sounds like Rob, my friend Rob Mailhouse.
No, his name was Peter.
Who had played drums with Keanu Reeves in
Oh, wow.
Star.
Oh, wow.
And is also a really funny guy and like a character actor kind of guy.
That was a very fun hang back there
Yeah.
that night.
I didn't get to see everybody because, Geoff Emerick, God rest his soul, was standing like kind of in the next room, and they were all involved. Everybody wanted to talk to Geoff, and I've talked to him a lot in the
So
past.
talk about Geoff for a minute, for those
Geoff
who
Emerick,
don't know.
the man, the legend, has just left us, hours
The day
ago.
after, 2 days after your gig or something.
It was, we gigged on Saturday, and I think I got the news on, I want to say Tuesday night, maybe?
That's
Was it
yesterday.
Tuesday?
I think it was Monday, actually. I think it was very soon after your
Anyway,
gig.
yeah, he had a lecture, and then the next day or night, he passed away suddenly. It was really sad. And
Tell
Geoff
everybody-
Emerick is an idol of mine, and all, of course, anybody who loves Beatle music has been affected by this guy's talent, because he was the guy who was sort of the catalyst between John Lennon saying things like, I want my voice to sound like it's coming from a mountaintop, and blah, blah, blah. And he was a guy, and this is what I said to him, one of the last things we were talking about that night, the other night, was how basically the creative process of the Beatles when they were in the studio was things were moving so fast and the demands were so high, and the desire to please the Beatles, the writers especially, because these are the guys envisioning something that you want to make come into fruition and be a finished product, just the way they're imagining it. So you jump over hoops to try to make this happen. And they were asking for things that technically theretofore had been thought of as being impossible, because the ideas of these things hadn't existed. So the need to create ways to get there hadn't yet been invented. So Geoff Emerick spent all those years basically faking it, like to a level so high that they pulled these things off. Doing tricks like holding up pencils with like tape running across the pencils, so that because they were out of spools for the tape machines to capture all these pieces of tape they were trying to make sounds with as an overdub session was happening, say for that song Tomorrow Never Knows we were talking about earlier. And just figuring out ways to make things happen, they just had to get really creative. And Geoff Emerick was probably one of the most creative and courageous studio audio engineers ever.
Wow.
And he found ways to make all these things happen.
Innovator.
And also, he also he would also anticipate what they were going to ask for, and he would already be ready to take it to the next level.
Wow.
He would push faders to the limit, way loud, way higher than the record company was ever allowing anybody to do. It was against all the rules. He'd break all the rules. He'd put the treble up higher for the say for instance for the song Nowhere Man has that really crispy high end guitar solo. He would push those EQ highs to the limit, and he would just do things.
So
that
it
were
wasn't even
unspeakable.
stuff that the Beatles were asking for. He was doing this.
Well, they were kind of asking for it. They didn't know really how to articulate it.
I see.
Because the language hadn't even been invented yet. They were just inventing it and going.
So whatever
as
they would articulate, he would find a way to do.
He would figure it out.
Wow.
He was there to make it happen, and he was just as excited about making it happen as he was making them happy.
So now when you do something with the Fab Faux as the White Album, and you're doing that second album,
The second disc.
the second disc on that album, oh my God. I mean, I can't even imagine how long it took you to just figure that. Because
Let's talk about Revolution 9.
Let's talk about
Because
Revolution
that's the
9.
thing.
Because that's the thing. You did it like exactly.
I had just gotten married.
Okay.
Okay, this is all important backstory. I had just gotten married to Sandrine, and we were.
We're going to talk about her after.
She's
too.
worth talking about for sure. We.
Congratulations on her award that she just won.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about that. Stay with Revolution.
We had just gotten a house, and the house had a separate. We had gotten a house in Connecticut together, and the house had a separate sort of garage building where I'd set up a studio to do my work, and we had just decided to do Revolution 9. We'd heard a band do it, and it was so piss poor that it really angered me.
Oh.
I was really mad.
That could be a real mess if it was not done well.
But it was a great ass kicker to make me want to do it right. So Frank Agnello, one of the Fab Faux original members, we've been together for 20 years, same 5 guys.
Which we'll talk about too.
That's hard to believe. New York City having a band.
Unbelievable.
And maybe the Ramones are the only band that can even come near that. But anyway.
No, because they kept dying. But anyway.
So Frank and I, we set our minds to finding out what all the elements in Revolution 9 are. What's the backwards piece of Sibelius, this classical piece, this Bach thing, like what is the thing and what does it sound like forwards, and how do we make it the same length so that it comes out backwards sounding like the Beatles did when they were doing all this experimenting. And we found out, we researched every little element, like what are the spoken words that people are saying. So the idea was to have a way for one or two guys to trigger some of these classical pieces and sounds, have other guys physically play the parts that you hear being played on the Revolution.
Because you're not playing an instrument during.
Not me.
Yeah, you're not. You're.
Our drummer Rich Pagano's playing a little bit of bass, and
Right.
Jimmy Vivino's playing a little bit of guitar, and Jack Petrozelli's playing a few things on piano where it's appropriate to replicate this piece. So the idea was like, okay, this is a lot of stuff, and it could really be messy. And how do we script this for 5 guys? And Sandrine, who had been in the house while I'm out in the garage, thinking to herself, did I just get married? Is there a man in my world? I don't seem to see anybody. And it was a drag for her,
How long did it take you
I
to
was out
figure
there.
this had to take a while.
I was on my own out there trying to figure this out, like, well, I can do this, the guy. Meanwhile, it wasn't until she got involved that it really started to happen.
Oh.
So we figured out a way to script this thing, and I don't like to give these secrets away, but every page is a minute. Every line is 10 seconds.
Wow.
Everybody's roles, whether it's spoken line or to trigger a sample or whatever, is color coded.
Wow.
So you can just really follow it along and do your part, and it ends up almost, I don't know how it felt to you, but to me it feels like some kind of odd Monty Python sketch.
That's a good way to put it. I mean, it
From
was
hell.
It was just so. It was not only audibly fascinating, but it was visually fascinating to watch you guys and Jim Broge running around and doing like all kinds of, I don't know what he kept popping up in different places.
The right, he's unbelievable. The pre-recorded Yoko Ono spoken lines. That's Sandrine.
Oh, nice.
We have Sandrine, virtual Sandrine recorded that she gets triggered from.
Excellent.
And if you've ever been triggered, you know just how painful that can be.
I've been triggered many times.
Oh!
By many people. All right, so yeah, that was amazing. All right, so let's go back. So you're touring with Dreams. What's the next thing? Is the next thing Bette Midler? What happens after that?
Dreams. The drummer Billy Cobham left Dreams for Mahavishnu, and who could blame him? Because Clive Davis was pressuring this really innovative jazz rock fusion band to be a top 40 band. Really, that's what all he wanted from us was hits.
Wow.
And this is not the kind of band you try to get hits out of. But
Right.
he forced us to, like our second record, he sent us down to Memphis to have Steve Cropper produce the band, and we were doing covers of things like Medicated Goo by by traffic, and you know, it's just like, oh, you could see why Billy Cobham had his foot out the door. So the band eventually, in the process of trying to replace Billy Cobham, 86 drummer auditions later, finally realized that it was over. So the band split up, and I was a guy who was doing well in Miami, had no intentions of moving to New York. I never thought about it until that phone call came in to come and audition for Dreams from Randy Brecker. I hadn't thought about anything. You know, I was just happy living at my parents' house. I had my little room with all the beautiful Frank Zappa, Phi Zappa Crappa posters on the wall, and black lights and stuff.
Hall too.
Unbelievable. So I was perfectly content.
You're content.
I was thinking, okay, so it's over and I'm going back to Miami.
And how old are you when this is going on? You're still
By this time, I might have even been like 20 by now.
Okay.
Because I was 18 when I came to audition for Dreams in '71. So I was just about to book my flight back to Miami, and one of the guys in the band was the guitar player Bob Mann, a very dear friend of mine, who had a house that he was splitting with a studio drummer named Alan Schwartzberg in Nyack. And they said, oh no, you're not moving back to Miami. You're gonna live in our house. We're gonna put you up in the attic and we're gonna get you work. And I was like, oh, okay, great. You know, I didn't have any connections. I'd seen the studio.
Were you good about
work.
saving your money while you were?
Oh, probably not.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
What money? You were making.
But you weren't making money with them? No.
So anyway, so I had seen these guys. I accompanied these guys to sessions, so I knew that there was a world up in New York of the session players, going from studio to studio, like all day long. Fresh piece of music, fresh band. You walk into a new room, you're creating something new that's never been heard before, and then you walk out of there and do it again an hour later. And I thought, man, I could see that this is a very sewn up thing, and I never had any intention of expecting me to be able to break through and get into the door of that scene. But as I was about to get back on the plane, these guys said, we'll get you work, and they sure enough did. Bob was arranging for jingle houses, and he called me in to sing a Kentucky Fried "Get a bucket of chicken, finger licking good," that kind of stuff.
Nice.
So next thing I know, I'm doing these national spots,
and you're doing it mostly as a vocalist rather than
well, both. First play, and hey, the guy can sing, so give him a shot, you know. And then the producers learned about what my limitations or talents were in the singing department, so they started to hire me to do all kinds of singing and playing. And then that led to other, you know, associate arrangers that work for those same jingle houses, besides Bob Mann, to start using me for their things. They would start picking things.
And are you also playing out at night? Are you playing the clubs, or are you not doing that
doing
stuff?
Everything.
You're doing everything.
Everything, except that. So about the Bette Midler thing, when I got the call to go do that, I was already doing some jingles.
Okay.
Did I skip anything?
No, I think you're right on track.
I mean, let me just give Don.
I think we're being
Don
linear.
Grolnick is the guy who was Bette Midler's second keyboard player, even though Barry Manilow was the MD and acoustic piano player. Don Grolnick was playing organ and maybe some other electronic keyboards at the time for the Bette Midler thing. Maybe string synthesizers, I don't know, whatever, filling in the blanks. But everybody trusted Don's word and musicality, and Don said, you don't have to audition anybody, I got the guy for you. So without an audition, I'm in Bette Midler's band, right?
Now wait, Bette she's a somebody, but she's a little somebody
She
at this
had
point.
Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy.
Right, so
she had a hit.
She had some...
And a big following, mostly gay following.
Yes, the bathhouse.
Which was, you know, incredible.
Huge.
They completely worshipped
Yes.
the divine Miss In. As we all did. I did too. I still think she's unbelievable.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
And, you know, I love her to death to this day. But, that thing was happening, but we're out in America now. We're flying from town to town, and I'm already a studio guy. And I see how the studio world, like, I see how it opened up for me, how it was possible that a certain guy couldn't make a session, but we still need a guy, so let's call whoever. And that's when I got my foot in the door as a bass player, because say Tony Levin couldn't do a thing, or some other established studio bassist couldn't do a thing, and I saw how dangerous it was to not be able to do a thing.
So if you're going out on the road and you stop doing, you stop being available, does somebody else come in and fill that slot? And how do you get back in when you get back to town?
I didn't even I didn't entertain that thought for 1 second. I would fly back in for the smallest little thing.
Really?
Get right back on the road for that
Really?
same night for the gig. Yeah, at my expense.
Wow.
Because I saw how
Because you
dangerous
saw
that
that
was.
you could.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Who said I'm going to get a second chance at being in this established thing, you know?
So you value that, you knew to value that session work, of, like that was sacrosanct, to not...
That was the thing I was so excited about, because that is looked like money. It looked like, the thing that I love the most, variety. Getting to do everything. I love when the rock guys think I'm a jazz guy, and I love when jazz players think I'm a rock guy. I love that.
And your
'Cause I never
Grammy's
wanted to
actually
be-
in jazz, right? Didn't you
Yeah,
win a
it
Grammy?
is.
Yeah.
But I never wanted to be pigeonholed, because I just like too many things, and I thought if I get thought of as any one thing, well, here I am in a Beatles band. But
Yeah, but
that
you're
is
in
an
a
exception to the rule.
But you played
That's
on
the one thing I'll let myself.
You played on Letterman for all of those years, and you played with everybody. You played
We were
all
probably-
music.
Yes, and throughout the commercials, it dawned on me that we were probably the most visible cover band ever for the longest amount of time.
For the longest amount of time.
Because that's essentially all we were doing was covers all those years, for 33 and 30 years.
Well, but you're playing
Except when we
behind.
played-
Yeah, you're playing
Yeah,
behind
but
artists.
most of the gig was going into commercial and coming out of commercial, and that was all just covers.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. But you backed up a lot of people.
Sure.
Okay, so go back. So how did you get the Bet gig? So that you didn't even have to
Growing.
audition. He just
That's
walked you in.
Yep.
There's There's Barry Manilow.
Loved it every night. It was incredible. Coming out to LA was really cool. We'd see Lucille Ball in the audience. We'd see Cher in the audience.
Wow.
Kirk Douglas, and Red Fox, and just crazy, like, especially we played the Universal Amphitheater we had a run there, and that was just drug heaven, debauchery heaven.
And now this is when Barry is Bette's band leader.
Yeah.
It's
He was
before
an
he's
unknown.
Barry.
Right, unknown as a artist.
So did you stay connected to him when he started to become like Hooga Barry? Like
Yes.
Yes.
We're still in touch. I
Wow.
love the guy.
Wow.
He's the greatest.
It's just
Greatest guy.
amazing.
And he's the real deal. He really knows orchestration. He just knows
Right, he's not
music.
just a
No,
pop
he-
star.
That was all kind of accidental
Really?
in a way.
How
Well,
did
it
he
always
break?
is, really,
How did
right?
he break through?
He
Do you
blew
know?
a couple of guys. And
No!
he's Barry Manilow.
Well, I know, but how did he
Great
break away
songs.
from Bette and start his own thing? How did that happen?
I guess during her thing.
Did she
going
give him-
on,
did
he
he
got
sing-
himself a record deal.
Did he sing any songs in that show with her?
Actually, yeah, he did have a little slot in the middle of the show. Like I think he would do like.
When she
Could It
would
Be
change
Magic
or
and stuff.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just remembering this now. I forgot about that. Yeah, he had like a 2 or 3 song segment.
There you go. That was-
Good negotiator. That's
So
good.
okay, so after Bette, so what happens after Bette? What year is that? When are you with
Oh, I have
Bette?
to tell you something that
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah,
very
yeah.
quickly. At the Universal Amphitheater, one night, I had seen the movie. I'd seen the movie American Graffiti. Remember that movie?
Oh yes.
So, and I had never seen a bunch of big ones.
Mackenzie Phillips might be watching. Could happen. Yeah.
Well, I had never seen a bunch of like really famous people, but I never forget a face,
Okay.
and maybe I don't know the name connected with the face, but one night we're playing Universal Amphitheater. I can't believe you said that name. I'm sitting.
Oh, is she in your story? No.
I'm sitting.
I'm sorry.
I'm sitting at the music's in front of me on a music stand.
Yeah.
And I see this chick in the audience, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't remember where I know her from, but she's such a pain in the ass. I don't want her to notice me. So I'm hiding behind the stand all night. Remember the character that Mackenzie played in that movie?
Yes.
She was like this
She was
pesky little sister
yeah.
that climbed into the guy's car.
Paul the
and
man's
whole thing.
car, yeah.
And I couldn't put it together. I just
So
thought,
you just thought
oh
of her
my
as
God,
pesky.
I know her. Oh my God, I gotta avoid. She's gonna see me. It's gonna be a horrible night.
Oh my God.
And then later on, I met her. And she was the sweetest, greatest
I
person.
love her. I love you, Mac. I
We
love her, love her,
really
love her.
love
That's it. I'm sorry. I ruined your whole story.
No,
Of all
no,
the people in
that's
that
funny,
movie.
though.
Well,
It's
because
really funny.
she's the reason that we have these.
Is that
Because
right?
she came and read from her book, and we were all crying when she read from her book. And so Rick Smokey, my fabulous guy, somebody said, have him make us tissue boxes, and he did. And it's all because of
What a
Mac.
great idea.
Yeah, it's all because of her.
The last time I saw her was we did John Phillips' last album, and she came and visited us in the studio.
Wow,
How about that?
wow,
It was called Phillips 66.
wow.
He was, and it was very tender and touching. You know, the whole thing. They're reconnecting and stuff.
What year was that? How long was that?
A long time. ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
So you've played with every. How did you end up playing with Ace Frehley? I mean, like, okay, so you played with
You know,
Bette.
Yeah, Eddie Kramer is a friend of mine. He's the engineer that did all those Hendrix records, and he was producing the record.
Okay.
And that was my sort of wake-up call into the world of Anton Fig.
Okay.
That was kind of
Anton
our-
used to play at my club with Scully, his band Scully.
Who was
Love
in that
it.
band? I don't even know about that.
Yeah, Scully.
I knew about Spider.
You're really challenging me. And I know
All right.
a British, he's fabulous, and he's my Facebook friend. And I'm sorry, I'm spacing on his name. It'll come to me. Scully was Anton's like big original project for like years, all through the 80s and early 90s. Anton played like every venue I played. He
He
didn't
is
come
a
and play.
working musician, Anton.
And that's how I also met Ace through Anton at a party. So through Anton you connected with Ace? Is that what happened?
Yeah, no, through Eddie Kramer.
Oh, through Eddie
who was
Kramer.
the producer, engineer.
So Anton and Ace were playing together.
I think, I don't know if they had any
Great
history
friends.
before that moment, but they obviously subsequently did more records together because Anton joined his band
Yeah.
after that and did the Frehley's Comet or whatever it was called, that project. And
My friend Gordon
was-
Gebert introduced me to Ace. Did one of my so you go from Bette. You don't go from Bette to Ace. What's
I went, let me think about this. Oh, I think before Bette I was in Horace Silver's band actually for a little while, for like a year. But anyway, from Bette, actually Barry's thing started to take off. And
Did you play with Barry?
I was in Barry's first touring band, first national tour again.
Oh wow!
So that was cool. I played on most of his hits in those days, like Mandy. And
So you're playing on those hits,
Yes,
and
Mom.
all those women going crazy over Barry. That whole scene, you were part of that whole.
it was kind of in between being unknown and known. So there was a few awkward moments. One time we were opening for Freddie Hubbard at Paul's Mall in Boston, Massachusetts, and it was like the most. It was the scariest.
How so?
Because it was Freddie's audience, and Barry was an unknown. So Freddie's audience came there to hear some serious jazz.
Okay.
And Barry's up on stage going, and now I'd like to do a medley of all the very strange commercials that ever played on. We call it the VSM. It goes something like this. You deserve a break today. And the audience is like, where's Freddie?
Oh my!
We want Freddie.
Wow.
Anyway. So that was not his fault, of course. That
No,
was
and one day those
manager.
people cursed themselves for being so short-sighted, I'm sure.
I don't know.
No, jazz people probably not. Okay,
Jazz
so.
people can be like this.
Yeah.
Very
So-
few become Barry Manilow fans.
That's probably true.
Especially the serious, these are practically bebop guys almost,
Yeah.
that kind of taste, which I love equally as much as any. I love great pop music. I love jazz like crazy. And
What's been some of your favorite music to play on? Like, you've played with so many people. Hiram Bullock, oh my God.
every endeavor, every project is scary. And I love being scared. I love the feeling of trying to figure it all out. It's always like fresh to me. Every
Has there
new
ever
thing.
been a failure, Will? Has there ever been something that just, well, because we challenges are what help us grow and push us forward. Was there anything that you felt that was there anything ever that you couldn't do?
There's a lot of things. People think I'm a good reader.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad they think that, but the truth of the matter is that I'm one of those people that when everybody's telling jokes before the session starts, I'm the guy filling in all the blanks on the music paper. So I actually got this reputation for being a really good reader. Mm-hmm. And I do have the ability to read rhythms pretty well, because rhythms, even though I started out as a trumpet player, French horn player, that was treble clef, and now I play in the bass clef stuff. Mm-hmm. The treble clef stuff, the rhythms are the same as the bass clef stuff. That never changes. So whatever note you're playing, the rhythms are applied to any of those notes.
Okay.
So the notes change, but the rhythms you start to see them over and over again. And once you sort of learn how to read rhythms, then the notes are kind of the only thing you have to think about as much. And in my case, in music, the music staff has 5 lines, right? Mm-hmm. There's only 5 lines. It's when it gets to the notes that are outside of those 5 lines that become ledger lines, they call it. They have these extension lines that come out above the staff. And when that gets really far away from the staff, that's when the pencil comes out. And I'm writing the name of those notes, like, it's a G, that's an A, that's it's up right about here in the bass, And the jokes have been told, and now, the loner can read all of a sudden. Or so it seems.
Can I talk you into pulling out that bass there and
Sure.
Doing a little thing for us with that bass there and yeah. You need this off?
I just wanted to make one point. Wow, you're good at that. You can.
Okay.
I can't find your assistant. Where did he go? Where did he go?
It's like camouflage.
What happened?
I know. Yes.
I didn't even realize that. That's hysterical. Was it worth it for that?
I've been waiting like an hour.
You got it in. I love it.
That's important.
That is important.
We only do what's important. Anyway, so this is a bass guitar.
Wow.
This is how I usually make most of my living these days.
Well, we'll have to talk about what you're doing. Are you still doing session work, Will?
Of course.
That's still your thing.
Sessions have become a thing where it's no longer people in a room together. It's mostly, placing a part on a.
You sitting by yourself?
On a project that's already been elements have been recorded already, and it's kind of a lonely version of what it used to be. Yeah, because it used to be the hang. People used to get together before the session, after the session, and during the session, and it was like one big family kind of a thing. But it's actually become.
Did you know P.F. Sloan?
I know the name.
Yeah, Eve of Destruction, and he wrote everything. But he was part of the Skeleton Crew, and he wrote Secret Agent Man.
But it was recorded by.
Yeah.
Barry Manilow?
But it was P.F.'s song, but also P.F. was part of that Skeleton Crew, and he was the voice of Jan and Dean and all these that we thought we were hearing them, but it was actually P.F. singing all those songs.
So he was kind of a wrecking crew guy.
He was a wrecking crew guy. Did I just say Skeleton Crew? Yeah, that was another band. All right, but anyway, yeah. So when you write music, when you write your stuff, how do you write your stuff?
I usually hear it in my mind first, usually.
And are you hearing it? You're not hearing it on.
Well, if I have a bass in my hand, and I have enough time to shut down things and just listen to the music that's coming from wherever it comes from.
Okay.
Which is sort of like having a real blank slate and not being distracted by the neon signs of life that are flashing, saying, "Pay attention to me over here," and my phone's going off, or TV's on, and all the stuff that we like.
Right.
I love TV. I love all that stuff, but it's really a drug.
Yes, it is for me.
And it's unless you're a thief, it's not making music. I like to make music that's not derivative of, that doesn't come from somebody else's idea. Let's say. I see Cliff Jones, my man's over here. Yes, what brand bass? Well, this is known as the Danacaster. And I love this. It's a Nashville guy that makes this. It looks like a Fender jazz bass, but it's not. And it behaves like a Fender jazz bass, except in some ways better. So,
Beacon Theater Loves Rock, New York City.
yes,
March.
Love Rocks, New York City.
Okay,
March
you're
7th.
going to be part of that. Okay. It says the 20th here. Did he get it wrong? Oh, somebody's
Who's
asking for a good Hiram story.
Hiram, I'll tell you my favorite Hiram story. This is just about me and Hiram, though.
That's okay. That's
Hiram and I were so like spiritually connected that whenever we got on stage, something amazing would happen. And for me, the thing that made it happen was the fact that Hiram was so generous of spirit and also so talented. He was one of the greatest guitar players that ever lived, I think, maybe. But he had this giant vocabulary. He's the only, and I said this at his memorial. He's the only black guy I ever knew that knew every Crosby, Stills and Nash lyric, every James Taylor lyric, every jazz standard lyric, and could sit at either a piano or guitar and sing and play any of these pieces.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Wow.
He was amazing. So because he had so much music available to him, to get on stage with a guy who's kind and open-hearted.
You played with him a long time.
A lot.
Yeah.
Many albums, many gigs. But he was the kind of guy you could play anything and he would turn it into music. So you could play your lamest shit on stage in the middle of a jam and he would hear it and he would just give it validity because he had so much to work with. You know, he had such a huge supply of ideas and reference points and things. He
Play
played
us something.
Okay, here's a song that I was actually. I may mess it up because I haven't played it in a really long time, but we were talking about where certain things come from and where the ideas. And I was sitting by myself one time, and I think my sort of go-to, like a lot of times I try to be jolly in front of people, but when I was alone this one time, I got so sad, and I just started writing this song called "I Know Too Much About Sadness," and it came from just a little thing, and I was just like, and I was doing this. Then it came out like. Many years have passed since I started in my search for something or someone to make me happy inside. I now know that happiness is something that we do ourselves, but having come to my senses, now I realize I know too much about sadness, much too much about sadness. I know too much about sadness, more than anyone ought to know. Anyway, it goes on and on.
I have never heard anybody sing a song alone with a bass.
Oh,
That was
really?
unbelievable. I don't think I've ever heard that before. I love it.
There's a lot more where that came from.
Well, yeah. Well, let's hear another one.
Oh no, we can't do that.
God, he was. His
Yeah, what
bass
can you
lines
say?
are ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Look at me. I'm as helpless as a kitten on a tree. And I feel like clinging to a cloud I can't understand. I get misty just holding your hand. Walk my way, and 1,000 Soon violins begin to play, or it might be the sound of your hello, the music that I hear. I get misty the moment you're near. You can say that you're leading me on, but it's just what you want me to do. Don't you realize how hopelessly I'm lost? That's why I'm following you. On my own. But I wonder if it's what I don't know. Never knowing my right foot from my left, my hand from my love. I get misty, too much in love. I get misty and too much in
My father was a jazz singer. He was a master of ceremonies in the Catskill Mountains, and he used to sing. He'd MC the show and sing.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, those
All the
songs.
time?
Yeah, that's what he
Oh,
did my
my
whole
God.
life. So yeah, so all that stuff. So when you're writing a song and you're getting inspiration, do you play so many instruments? Do you pick up your bass? Do you pick up an acoustic guitar? What do you do?
I do any of those things. I'll sing a beat into the iPhone, you know. Anything. And usually I will just let it sit there for years and never finish it. I have a million unfinished ideas.
Mm.
And I get inspiration all day long, and I just really have a tough time pushing it through to become a finished song. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Especially words.
Mm-hmm.
Words is hard.
Do you write? Did you write poetry? Do you ever do that? Like what comes first? Does the music come first?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
Sometimes, you know, I have this thing people call echolalia.
Oh,
Some people-
my son had that.
Yeah, so something suggests something else, and
What is that?
It's interpreting a spoken thing and turning it into sort of what you want it to be in a way that sounds almost the same, right?
Can you give me
Well,
an example?
Echolalia in autism generally is not having your own language, but like if I said, Will, would you like an Allegra? And you would say, instead of saying, yes, I'd love one, you'd say, Will, would you like an Allegra?
Oh.
So echolalia is basically not having your own language, but repeating what is said to you like a parrot.
Oh, okay. That's kind of the same thing.
Kind of. Okay.
So in other words, it's almost like, for me, like puns happen almost naturally. And it's because of something reminding me of something else. Sort of. It's
Interesting.
my interpretation of something.
Okay. All right.
Some people have called me a cunning linguist.
Oh my, that's a gift. So let's talk about your wife for a minute. So she got an award.
Are you changing the subject?
I am. Well, cunning linguist.
Love-
I'm sorry, but I went right there.
My wife is the greatest.
So I
She's
saw
the greatest
her.
thing about me.
That's lovely.
By
How long
far.
have you been married?
18 years.
Nice.
I know. Seems like about a minute.
I know, I thought you just got married.
I think I just did too.
And so she did a beautiful. I saw the.
Have you
It's
seen
not a
her
video.
book?
I have not seen the book, but I saw the
You
video
saw the
image.
presentation?
Yeah.
Isn't that great? I mean, it's not even the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, so what
Of
she
course.
did was explain what she's done because it's
She,
extraordinary.
you know, this is the kind of thing when somebody, first of all, her story is, she's from France.
Mm-hmm.
She decides to come to America.
Mm-hmm.
She has no gig, she has no friends, she has no money, she doesn't speak the language.
Wait a minute. How old is she when she does this?
Oh man, I don't know.
Is she a girl?
I don't even know how old she is now.
Oh.
But she's really young. I'm going to say she was probably a teenager.
Okay. So she comes here with nothing.
Nothing.
What's her plan?
She wants to be, I think that she has got sort of like this idea of what America is based on movies and stuff.
Okay.
That's sort of her go-to reference, and until the rude awakening of actually being in America. But she figures out a way to get to Florida, and she doesn't, as I said, doesn't have a place to stay or anything, so she sleeps on the beach. Yes, Miami Beach. Who would
And
do
she's
this?
gorgeous.
How much courage does it take to leave your entire world to come to a new place without any of the safety nets available that anybody would have?
I cannot imagine.
She's got no like way to actually land a gig because you need papers for that. She can't get a driver's license, but she figured that out. She slowly learned the language the hard way. She thought she knew English when she got here, but people are very. I do the same thing when the accent's on the wrong syllable. You don't know what the person's really saying sometimes, and there was a lot of that in her life, and she would embarrass herself quite a bit until she finally realized what she was doing wrong, and then she would, she's got a huge vocabulary. She's brilliant. I mean, she's really studied in Latin, so she knows about the roots of all the words, and that gives her a lot of tools to use that combined with her common sense to figure things out with language, and she reads all day long, every day. Really well read. Anyway, after a while, she finally decided that she got herself sort of established and somehow moved to New York, and I think that was also maybe through acting somehow to the act. She was still an actor when I met her, but she was working as actors do. She was working at a restaurant, standing bar and serving, as a waitress. And it was at a place that I used to go to a lot because it was a centrally located place that was right in and among, like a half a block from the Letterman show, half a block from the rehearsal studios, so everybody used the SIR, half a block from recording studios, so people would gather there. So it was kind of a musician and somewhat actor, somewhat advertising world hang. And people from Reuters would go there too, as their hang, whenever they had time off. So she got to know all kinds of people from there. But I went there because it was convenient for me, and I would even take dates there sometimes. And chicks love that apparently because we're now married for 18 years. No, that wasn't the reason. She didn't hold it against me. I'll say that much. For whatever reason, which is very kind.
Well, were you already talking to her and kind of having a thing?
Talking, and she was like, she smoked, and she was French, and she was an actress, and I was like, yeah. And the way our relationship grew was so organic. It snuck up on me. I didn't see it coming. It wasn't the love at first sight, anything like that. It was just like, wow. The more we talked, the more we start to interconnect, and became like a very real thing. I wish I could teach how to do this, because honestly, I had given up completely on trying to find somebody. It was not until then that real love was allowed to happen. I honestly had just said, okay, I get it. All my relationships have been a total farce. It's always ended up a disaster. I'm just going to be Uncle Will to everybody, and that's fine. I'm okay with me, I get it. That's fine. What's the point of
How did Uncle Will start? I wanted to ask you that.
Ralph McDonald, the great studio percussion player Ralph McDonald, started calling me Uncle Will.
Just
Uncle
like
Will.
this.
Yeah.
Okay, and it stuck.
Because he was that kind of really charming, personable guy, and a great friend. So and it just stuck, and then I literally became Uncle Will when my brother had his first kid.
Okay, so let's get to the book that just has been. Was it the book, not the video presentation that she won the award for? Correct.
Right, the book.
And the premise of it.
Nude Escapes. She goes to public places throughout the world, all alone. She's like the.
I wanted to know this. You're not like hiding somewhere.
You
She
know,
is alone.
Let me tell you that this girl is so driven. I mean, this is the same courageous person that
Slept on the
found
beach.
herself
Yeah.
at the shores of America without any, without all the tools to do it. But she just had herself, basically.
It makes sense that she could do this. So the
A person
nudescapes
like
are.
that, you're
yes.
not allowed to. First of all, you're not allowed to tell her not to do it, and you're not allowed to really worry about her because she's got this amazing awareness. When I used to go to that restaurant, I loved it because the service was incredible, and I never realized until she stopped working there that it was because of her. Even though there were other wait people, it was her overseeing the whole room and being aware enough to tell, hey, table 7, you're screwing it up. You gotta,
Okay, so talk about the nudescapes.
All of a sudden,
for
the
second.
restaurant sucked
Yeah.
when she lived there. When she
Wow.
left there, the restaurant was like a place I avoided.
So nudescapes. So tell what they are.
She goes out. I go to sleep. It often happens at night, and she hates to miss a full moon, so she has a calendar of when all the full moons are coming, because she loves to get this mysterious, like odd feeling of what happens when a full moon lit night and combined with a long exposure on the camera makes this weird, like, is it day, is it night, So she, like, we'll be in a place and I'll go to sleep like 1 o'clock and she'll go, I'm gonna let, after you sleep for like, I'm gonna read, and then for like an hour or two, I'm gonna go out and do my thing. And I'll wake up the next morning and she will have already completely taken care of her thing. And I slept through the whole ordeal.
And what she's doing is she's taking pictures of herself.
She goes out with just herself and a camera and a tripod and a 10-second timer. And she sets it up, sets up the lighting, or if it's a full moon lit night, she'll just use that as the light. And she's, done these photos in front of like really public places. One of my favorites is right in front of the Beverly Hills Hotel sign. When you're going down Sunset.
So she's
always
nude,
cars.
and she's nude. She's nude.
She's nude.
They're
She rips her
nudescapes.
clothes off,
Yeah.
runs in front of the camera,
And she's
goes back,
nude.
puts, she's like one of these pervert guys,
But she's
with just the overcoat
but she
and
al-
naked underneath.
But she's protective of her body. It's not like she's flaunting her body
No,
in
it's
these
not about
pictures
sex.
at all.
No, it's
she's and I love the
In her
copy
mind-
that went along with it. It's that this is her greatest inhibition.
Yes.
To show herself.
In her mind, she's representing us, not herself. It's not. She doesn't see it as being about her. She has a whole thing about Facebook and about privacy. She's not on Facebook. She thinks that privacy is one of the last greatest assets that we don't have anymore. And she really is into preserving that.
I'm going to put the link to that
So it's a book.
I saw the video that she did with it that links to the book, I guess, but it's very powerful
Oh, I'd love
to see
to
these
see
images
that.
and also to hear her tell. That is her voice, I'm
Right,
assuming.
yes.
To hear her tell the story of
Yes.
why she's doing it and how she's doing it. Amazing. And I'm just looking. We've been talking for
Oh
we've been talking for forever. So
You were saying.
So that's my favorite. Wait, how did he come up?
Is that legal?
Yeah, I don't know. They won't know what it is. It's okay. We'll get away with it. They won't know what it is. They're not hearing the vocal. So Will, what's on the plate coming up? What haven't you done that you still want to do?
I have a lot of challenges ahead of me because I've been MDing a bunch of really big shows.
Like what?
Well,
Musical directing for those of you.
I would say one of the ones that I really love doing, well, I love them all, but it's a benefit for God's Love We Deliver, which is called Love Rocks NYC, and we've done 2 so far,
Okay.
and they've been just gangbusters successful.
Like who playing on them?
Can I just look at the list?
Yeah, look at the list.
There are so many people.
What
Last year, man.
Cliff Jones says, I tried doing the same nude book, didn't go over well.
Hey, practice makes perfect.
Oh, that's very
So
funny.
last year we had Trombone Shorty, Patti Smythe, Andra Day, Donald Fagen, Gary Clark Jr., David Hidalgo, and Doyle Bramhall, Nona Hendricks, Alan Stone, Nora Jones, Emmylou Harris, Lucinda
Wow.
Williams, Billy Gibbons, Ann Williams,
Wow.
Mavis Staples, Tash Neal, Mark Cohn, the Bacon Brothers, Jimmy Vaughn, Valerie Simpson,
Wow.
Keith Richards.
Holy shit.
This is a big, it's a lot of work.
Where is this going to be?
This happens at the Beacon.
At the Beacon.
And it's a fundraiser.
And it's a one night thing?
One night thing.
Okay, and this is a big fundraiser.
And this next year we're planning already because you have to plan like way in advance. There's a lot of work. And I also got this lovely thing. There's an organization called Little Kids Rock that I love.
Okay,
and
what's
these
that?
guys,
Mm-hmm.
it was started by a wonderful sort of a Peter Pan kind of guy named David Wish. Dave Wish is from one of the most violent cities in America. It's somewhere in California. I can't remember the name of the town. But he grew up there. No, worse.
Oh, okay.
It's a place.
Camden.
It's so poor. It's so poor that he had in his heart that he wants to get musical instruments and instruction into the hands of kids that could, first of all, could fall off the rails because they had nothing else better to do than to be street jerks.
Uh-huh.
You know, just violence or whatever the lowest thing they could do to survive. But just because they didn't have another option in mind
Mm-hmm.
for them as part of their life.
Mm-hmm.
So he found that when you put music in people's lives, it changes them greatly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a wonderful thing, and they raise all this money, and they get all these instruments provided, and the education that goes with it. And these start out as like after-school programs, and a lot of times they work their way into the curriculum, which is in America these days.
I went to a thing where this was presented. There's a film that goes with this program.
I'm sure.
Yes, and okay, this is fantastic.
So yeah.
So
I
what
get
do you
the
have to
musical
do with
director
this?
for that.
Wow.
Also, every year it's a concert, it's a fundraiser. It's taking place at the PlayStation Theater this year on November 8th.
And when's your Fab Faux gig at the Beacon?
That one is November 3rd. We're going to do a George Harrison 75th birthday concert, and it's just so spectacular. We have like a 6-piece choir of singers, and you know, you'll see Jim Bozier will be there.
He's amazing.
Again. And our resident harpist and other multi-instrumentalist, Erin Hill. I don't know if you know her, but she's fantastic too. We'll have our hogshead horns and our cream tangerine strings. And we've been talking to Olivia about it. We're going to put part of the proceeds towards the Material World Foundation, which is George's foundation, George and Olivia's.
Sounds pretty wonderful.
And other things. I'm working on a brand new festival that's going to start in Tokyo this next year, in 2019. That's going to be kind of cool. So we're building that festival. I'm the musical director of that thing too.
And so there's still session work, and there's still the Fab Faux going around. And do you miss not having the TV, the Letterman gig every night?
I think I'd be greedy to say that I wanted any more than I already had.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did.
You had
I did
a
that.
long run.
I did that one.
You did that
was
one.
a cool one.
You did that one.
That happened, as Dave would say. Well, that happened.
Well,
Sure
Will, I thank you so much for doing this. This has been a long time coming. We've been talking
Thank
about
you.
this for a long
I'm such
time.
a fan of this show that you do, no matter what you're going to call it. It's the same.
It is. It's exactly
It's
the
the
same.
same.
Yeah, it's
But
the same thing.
I loved The Road Taken, and I love the Game Changers, and I look forward to all the episodes, and you do a great job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And it's been just an absolute
You're the
treat.
best.
And so look for Willie in all of these things that he's doing. I'll put a bunch of links on the show so people can find you. Next week we're going to be back with Bob Calsill, which I just want to say, for those of you who don't know it, Bob did the living room. He played, when we have Women Who Write, there's 50 women in here, and people
Just
play
Bob.
over there. Bob did it by himself. It is in the top 5 of all time Women Who Write performances that has ever happened. Still to this day, it is the #1 video that I get comments every single week.
Those
All
Calsills are beyond.
Bob is beyond the beyond, and
Yes.
and that is one of the most entertaining videos. It's got over 50,000 hits on it, and people just keep hitting on it and hitting on it and hitting on it. And he's going to be with us.
I saw the Calsills on tour this summer, and it was just amazing.
You saw the Happy Together tour?
Yeah.
Fun, really fun. And they're the
My
cream.
friend Ronnie Dante was
And Howard
one of the
Kalin, if you're
turtles.
watching, Howard sat it
We
out
love
this
you,
year.
man.
But
Yeah,
I love
we missed
Howard.
you and love you and come back.
Howard was actually watching Women Who Write this afternoon. He was watching last week's Women Who Write. He wrote to me on LinkedIn. But anyway, and Howard did an amazing set in this living room. And that's another thing we want to get you back for, is actually to play some music for us.
Could
yeah,
do.
we
Could do.
Yeah, we can do that. We can figure that out. Thank you so much for
Thank
doing
you.
this, Will. Thank you, Jason, for being here. Thank you, Christina.
That was fun.
And we'll
Thank
see
you.
you all next week on Game
Thank you for the
Changers.
peanuts, the muffins, the carrots, the cantaloupe.
See you next time.